And I am happy to introduce today's presenter, Chris Scafario, sorry about that, from our sister organization, dvrc. Chris is the Vice President, Chief Operating Officer, and the Vice President of Consulting Operations at dvrc. He leads the sales and marketing practice where he helps clients become high-performing organizations. Chris has developed dvrc's lead generation program, which has been delivered to more than 250 companies across the United States. dvrc is a great partner with us here at NWIRC. I'm very happy to have Chris here with us to provide some great information for you folks today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris.
Great. Thank you so much, Molly. I appreciate it. And thanks everyone for spending a part of their day with us this Tuesday morning. So today's subject matter is really designed to get everyone thinking about how we can take data and use it as a source to drive a competitive advantage. One of the things that we've seen and really experienced over the years is that good market research, good competitive intelligence can really have a multiplier effect within an organization. It can help a small to mid-sized manufacturer function at a much higher capacity than many of their rivals. And the good news about this whole conversation is it doesn't require a cultural change. It doesn't require, a multi-year commitment. It just requires some time and some thought. And today I'm going to walk you through some of the tools that you can use to get started and some examples as to what you can expect to gain from these tools. I'll kind of blow right through the mission of dvrc. We're based out of southeastern Pennsylvania. We handle Philadelphia and suburban Philadelphia. Our region consists of about 5,000 manufacturers, most of which are under 35 person firms. So we have a lot of small manufacturers, a lot of job shops in the region, but we do work nationally. We are currently working with about 25 different MEP centers, helping deliver what we refer to as growth services. I just like to start every one of these conversations with a little bit about our journey. I grew up in a small beverage bottling plant, knew what it was like to work nights and weekends to try and get product out the door, knew the struggles of maintaining relationships and really everything that's associated with being a small business. I used that and, a 12 plus year pool of experience at dvrc to continuously refine how we can get the smaller and lesser sophisticated businesses on track to adopt, apply, and succeed with the right kinds of tools. Over the years, we've gone from a team of 2 folks doing this kind of marketing and sales and strategy work to a team of over 20 doing this kind of work. We've delivered over 160,000 hours worth of consulting work. And if you look at all of our different types of projects that we've taken on, we've worked with over 1,000 different unique manufacturers during that 12-year period. So the one thing I can say is that manufacturers are truly unique. Every one of them has a different way of doing what they do, but their struggles are far, far less so. Having, call it a growth engine in place and knowing how to service and maintain that growth engine is a real problem for many. So we like to use conversations like this to offset those struggles and basically position our manufacturers, no matter where they might be, with a higher likelihood of success when they go out to market and sell their wares. The one thing that we've learned and we are tremendous advocates for is this plan, do, check, act, or kind of continuous improvement style of growth thinking. The more we can standardize the work that goes into top line growth, the more we can replicate those steps and replicate our wins. And that's why we really have kind of adopted this whole Dr. Deming plan, do, check, act, quality circle line of thinking into these discussions. Equally important in this whole discussion is knowing and really coming to grips with that success is going to require action. We can't just put a Google campaign on in place and hit, cruise control. We really need to look at the environments, read the tea leaves around where changes are coming from and how those changes can negatively or positively impact our business and course correct. As an MEP center, as an affiliate of a national network, we try to make everything that we do and everything that we teach actionable. Someone once told me, you can't learn how to sail from sitting on the dock or reading a book. You got to get out in the water and feel the wind and the boat underneath your body. So, we try to take that lesson and apply it into these growth discussions. So with that, a little bit about competitive intelligence. Essentially, it's research that explores competitors, general landscapes, and it tries to define, where the opportunities are to outcompete or outperform against a rival. And it also tries to call out and anticipate, if you will, the direction that a given market rival competitor is trying to pursue. It's a means for us to get smarter and more strategic in how we're able to go to market against other alternative suppliers, competition. So when properly used, competitive intelligence can guide our strategy and our tactics. It can really shine a bright light on market shifts and where businesses are winning and where they're losing. And it can help us build confidence and clarity around strategic initiatives, entering new markets, launching new products, hiring new resources. Competitive intelligence overall can be a tremendous enabler when it comes down to trying to build a strategic plan. It really is something that I would encourage anyone that's thinking about or in the process of building a strategy for the business. You got to take the time and build in the intelligence. And as I indicated earlier, it's really something that can be built into a process. It doesn't need to be this fuzzy front end with this murky middle and then, hope for an outcome. It really can have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Kind of a representation of what that process can look like we have right here. If you go into any kind of research initiative, you're probably looking to define find a solution for a problem or validate something. So going into a project, going into an initiative and trying to state what problem you have that you're looking to solve or validate is really the first step. Then understanding what specific research objectives you're looking to accomplish. What do we want to learn? What do we not want to learn? You're building clarity around specifics with regards to your research. And then you certainly want to design in what kinds of tools. And I'll get into the tools as we go through. But at a high level, you want to understand if you're looking to capture existing data, through Google searches and things like that, or if you're looking to collect what we call primary research, interviews with stakeholders and customers and people that have a perspective on a given subject matter. But as you go through the process, it's essential that you start collecting the data, right? You collect the data in a very standardized fashion so that you can process and build aggregate findings through the sum of everything that you learned. Once you have that data collected and you have the opportunity to evaluate it, you want to start to build recommendations or an action plan around the results that you've captured. So if we look at the tools, and this is a really important part of our discussion today, we need to understand what we're trying to accomplish and how we can reach that goal. The two most widely used kind of categories for research in today's world have to do with primary and secondary research in the business environment. Primary research is really a great enabler. It is original data that was collected by you or someone you hire. Some examples of primary research have to do with customer surveys, satisfaction surveys. They can be online, they can be sent via email, they can be face-to-face interviews, they can be over the telephone. So when you think of primary research, think of your satisfaction surveys that you might have gotten, say, when you took your car in for service, or maybe bought a new TV. Other examples include like focus groups. You know, a lot of times consumer products are often launched through a discussion around groups. What do you think of the design of the interior? What do you think of the color combinations? Do you like our new logo? And groups of people kind of share their insights, and observers are able to kind of be immersed in some crowd thinking. One-on-one interviews, another really powerful way of gaining insights from people that have, call it a horse in a particular race. So they can give you tremendous specifics. They can be very customized, but they are absolutely enlightening when properly performed. Then, you know, observations from an experiment. We conduct experiments. We watch how people behave. We document our insights, and these are each very relevant, very important examples of primary research. Again, that's the work that you do, or you hire someone you select to gather the insights that are specific to the questions you have at hand. Primary research can be quantitative or qualitative. It can be feelings-based or very numerical. So you can have a scoring system, or you can have open-ended responses. Either way, the key benefits of primary research ultimately come down to this. When you run your own research study, you are able to establish insights that are specific to your needs, right? You don't need to worry about any kind of gray or non-related areas. You're able to design the effort right around your points of curiosity. The disadvantages to primary research, and there's not many, but they do come down to cost, and it can take time. So if you don't have a budget and you need to get an answer, you know, almost immediately, then primary research might not be your best option. However, secondary research is a very powerful tool, and there's many instances where you need both primary and secondary research to get to an informed perspective. Secondary research is always collected by someone else, right? So think of it as Googling, right? It's the best example I can give you. When you want to learn about the total number of Model Ts ever sold, you go to Google. When you want to learn how many cups are in a pound, you might ask Alexa. But this whole kind of thinking is really doing secondary research. It's already been established. Secondary research can be qualitative or quantitative. It's all coming down to what you can find. The many wonderful benefits of secondary research really come down to it being cheap and fast. Very few things in life can add a lot of value for no cost and almost instantaneously, but secondary research is one of those things. Some of the disadvantages, and we see this a lot in very niche focused manufacturing environments. Secondary research might not be specific enough to get you the exact insight that you need to make an informed decision. So there's some of the good and the bad with primary and secondary research. Either way, either one you choose, and again, it can be both, I'd like to stress the value of making sure your research efforts have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then having quality checks in between. I mentioned the Plan, Do, Check, Act quality loop. This is the best tool I can share with you for any kind of project management. You know, there's the saying, you plan your work, you work your plan. That's the same in any kind of research model. When you start to think about what you want to accomplish, you really need to look at what your end goals are, right? And for that reason, we encourage any research initiative, any strategic initiative for that matter, to set up its own unique SMART goal. A SMART goal is specific to the organization that it's designed to support. You know, what specific market opportunities are we looking to establish in 3D printing? We are a 3D printer, and we want to understand the specific trends that will lead us to estimated annual growth north of 10% year over year. We want that goal to be measurable. Our business is looking for a 10% or better growth for the next 12 to 24 months. That way we have a time frame, we have a measurable goal. Is it attainable? Well, 10% might be a stretch for some. The timeline, 12 to 24 months, is certainly attainable, but the important thing to do always when you're setting your SMART goals is make it maybe a little bit of a stretch, but make it so that people working on the mission do believe that success is attainable. You also want to make sure that that goal is relevant to the organization. A growth goal of 10% year over year or over the next 24 months is certainly relevant to the business. It'll help you in many ways. And again, the timely factor, never set up a goal that lacks a timeline. Always, always, always bake in what the horizon is to be successful. But it shouldn't just stop at over the next 12 to 24 months. You should kind of have a production schedule in place to show you, you know, we're going to have our secondary research done in the first 6 weeks. Once we are able to establish, you know, the lay of the land in the first 6 weeks, by week 7 or 8, we'll be able to go out and interview stakeholders that we've identified as offering high-level insights in the next, you know, call it 8 to 10 weeks. So you have timelines, you have people that are accountable, and you have a SMART goal that will help you pursue your success. Now, I'll share these slides with you so you can kind of go back and look at what we've talked about here. And in the slide deck that we're sharing are some tools. This one is just a great SMART goal worksheet. The good news is with this sheet is you don't need to just use this particular tool for a research charter. You can use it for any kind of strategic initiative that you're looking to take on. Competitive intelligence. I certainly love it as a strategic tool in a business, but what's so great about it? Let's take a look and see how we can come up with. So one of the things, going back to my early days with DVRC, early days working with clients, we would go through a very standard SWOT analysis, right? We'd meet in the boardroom, meet around a kitchen table, would talk about, you know, internal to your business, where are your greatest strengths and what are your most significant weaknesses? External to your business, what opportunities do you anticipate trying to take advantage of, and where do you see threats? So early on, you know, it was always fascinating to see what different owners and managers and team members would say from their strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities and threats. But, you know, probably 2 years into working with manufacturers, maybe not even that long, it became really clear that there might be a disconnect. You might not be able to see the forest from the trees rightly in front of you. So in introducing a notion of external data points, whether it's primary or secondary research, to your SWOT analysis, really helps build and create a more informed SWOT. You might think that you are a technology leader, or you're the first or the only to be able to do something. but spending some time and looking at alternatives or substitute ways of providing a solution might very well show you that there's far more competition than you believe existed. Those opportunities that you thought were so tremendous might be a little shorter lived than you had thought. So there's plenty that can be learned to help validate, inform, course correct your SWOT analysis. So it's a great tool that can be made even better when you take the time and you add or apply some competitive intelligence to your thinking. Again, here's a tool that you can all get to work on. If you haven't done a SWOT in the last 12 to 18 months, I would encourage you to do one. Spend some time, for that matter, thinking about your weaknesses with regards to inventory and supply chain, and the disruptions that might be out there. Those kinds of weaknesses and threats can certainly be a good topic for discussion, and making sure you're in a position that prevents any kind of vulnerability. So, SWOT analysis is a great tool. Competitive intelligence can also make this impactful jump from a SWOT analysis tool into the overall organizational strategy. There's a lot of different reasons a business can elect to run a strategic planning session or embark on a strategic planning initiative. Standard, hey, we don't have a plan. We haven't had one for the last 24 months. Let's get back on the horse. Let's build a strategic plan that kind of outlines where we're going as an organization and how we intend to get there. That's a perfectly fine and widely seen reason to build a strategic plan. Issue-based strategic planning is kind of a more urgent or compelling reason for some to get started in a planning process. Turbulent management conditions, God forbid something happened to a leader where they have a limited time to spend running the business. They need a contingency plan. They need a succession plan. They need a strategy to navigate through that turbulent period of time. Organic strategic planning. There's some kind of economic disruption or unprecedented trouble, the supply chain that we're all seeing and reading about and experiencing. You might find that that's a compelling enough reason to get out and dedicate some time to building a strategy and applying some market research, market scouting to understand what's driving these current conditions. Then real-time strategic planning. If there's a crisis, it's not a 24-month exit strategy, but your owner or leader was hit by a bus. How do we navigate through this? That's certainly compelling. And in those instances, you might say, you know what, we don't have any time to do a full-on primary research initiative. We need to look at the market conditions that are out there and leverage any kind of secondary research, maybe even benchmark our rivals to see how they're set up to go to the market. That's kind of the thinking that would go into the real-time strategic planning. And then the alignment. You know what? Your business might have awesome bones. It might be great, but departmental communications kind of are lacking. It happens a lot. Don't be afraid to acknowledge it. But spending some time to benchmark how high-performing organizations are aligned can get your alignment model up on track and going in the right direction. Again, competitive intelligence, whether it's primary, secondary research, or both, can really lead to impressive outcomes in your strategic planning process. It should come as no surprise that market research can help marketing and sales initiatives perform and outperform their rivals. So what do we mean by that? Every marketing and sales plan should be fueled by market research. What are we selling? Where are we selling it? How are we selling it? And then look at what market conditions are, what product trends exist, and how your customers want to engage. Think about all the different ways you can win a new customer. Try to apply some data points, whether it's direct voice of customer insights or industry best practice reports. Get these insights into your marketing and your sales thinking, and make sure that you are aligned with where the industry is going. Failure to do so can put you years behind your competition and cost you tens of thousands of dollars, if not more. So making a dedicated effort, and I would say, every month, try to carve out a little bit of time to really pulse where your market's going. Many of us have stock portfolios or retirement plans that we spend some time and try to adjust our resources accordingly so we're making the most out of a given market condition. We should do the same with our businesses. A tool that helps us kind of holistically look at where our business is versus everyone else around us that's trying to get the same piece of the pie is the 5 force or competitive landscape, the Porter's 5 forces, as it's also called. Michael Porter is a Harvard Business School professor that's been around since the 1980s, but he's very pointed with his thinking, and he's kind of matter of fact with where and how businesses should be thinking about driving improvements. To the point that in today's environment, some folks kind of think he might be a little too harsh or a little too antiquated, but I'll leave you to be the judge. I admire his thinking in terms of using strategy as a process, as a tool to ensure what not to do. We've seen over the years so many bad decisions come through our clients' manufacturing facilities. We bought the wrong equipment, we bet on the wrong technology, we went after the wrong market. And sometimes these decisions led to consequences that were irreversible. So, when you're taking the time to think strategically around where you want to take the business, you really need to be focused on choosing the best possible outcome and avoiding choosing the worst case scenarios. So strategy comes down to choosing what not to do as much as it does choosing what to do. A helpful tool that I'd like to share with the group is this competitive landscape, or Porter's 5 forces. It's an analysis tool that conditions business people to think about the roles and the impact of their customers. What kind of leverage does your customer have over you from a pricing standpoint, from a delivery standpoint, from a product development standpoint? What kind of leverage does your supply chain have over you from economies of scale, access to the inventory you need to be able to get orders out the door? What kind of role do substitutes to your way of solving a problem have, and where will they impact you moving forward? So threat of substitutes can be best described as things that are slightly different than what you do, but would be likely to take market share away from you. Internal competition or rivalry. The best way to describe that is the people that you're currently competing against, right? Are you operating in an environment where somebody that would offer a 5% lower price would almost always take that business away from you? Or are you in a highly differentiated category where, the barriers to entry, those barriers to taking clients away would be pretty high, and it's not something you need to worry about as much? On that similar line of thinking, there's often value in looking at what exactly it would take for someone to set up the same business you have today. Are there high barriers to entry, low barriers to entry? What's the risk level? So this line of thinking really, really helps justify strategic directions and where you want to go. Each one of these factors can be measured as low, medium, or high. Normally, if you're in a high area of these forces, you're vulnerable, and you need to really look at opportunities to kind of pivot and reduce that level of vulnerability. To make it a little easier for the group, I broke out the different aspects typically associated with, the threat of a new entrant, bargaining power of a supplier, bargaining power of buyers, and substitutes along with rivals. It really comes down to scalability, right? If there's low barriers to entry and a lot of people that can do what you do, then you're going to be in a commodities space. And that's not really where we've seen small and mid-sized manufacturers thrive. The further you can go into, setup costs are really high. It costs our clients a lot to switch over from one supplier to another. We have a good, reliable inventory planning process with our suppliers. We're partners. So that makes it easy for the buyer to stay with us, and it would be very cumbersome for them to move away. When you're having those conversations, when you're in that kind of a position, the threat of substitutes and the influence of rivals really start to be limited. So, companies don't get there overnight, but they'll never get there if they're not actively working through their competitive forces and trying to come up with the best possible position that they could occupy. So again, here's a tool I'll encourage the group to kind of work on their own time, but do spend a little bit of time and think through, what kind of market forces are you operating within? I mentioned benchmarking a little earlier in this presentation, and I'm a big advocate for the process of competitive benchmarking, because I honestly believe anyone can do it if they set aside a couple or a few hours and start looking at what their competition is really up to. Not what you think or you might have heard at the water cooler. Actually start Googling, chasing their link, stalk them on LinkedIn, and really start to look at, what kind of industries are they targeting? What kind of products are they releasing? What kind of marketing channels are they using? This is what I mean when I talk about competitive benchmarking. Set yourself up with a competitor overview. What do they sell and to who? What kind of technologies or materials go into their offerings? What kind of talent do they have within the organization? Build an honest to goodness overview of how they're set up to go to market. Include an outlook of the industries that they're targeting. Where are they selling? What do the growth trends look like? Do they occupy a strong position or a weak position? What are the trends that could influence your ability to disrupt your competition? When we build competitive benchmarks, we use a free tool called a mind map. So if you kind of picture a decision tree in your mind, it's a very similar tool that can be described to kind of represent a mind map. And we like to use these tools to capture all the data you find. So each tool, each company rather, that we'd be looking to benchmark could be a main idea with industry served, talent and capabilities, technologies, growth trends. There could be a lot of baby nodes within these mind maps that help you categorize and outline the thinking that goes into your competitive benchmark. Another tool, and this one's, if I'm being honest, a lot easier for you to get started with today than the mind mapping tool. It's a free web assessment tool. And again, the presentation will be hot linked. So right over here where it says click here to your free web assessment, you'll be able to put your website in and see how you score. And you'll be able to put, 1, 2, 100 of your rivals into that same assessment tool. And for free, and within a couple of minutes, you'll have a downloadable assessment to see things like what keywords they're using, how the site is performing, what kind of traffic goes there, what site pages are important. Facebook likes. This is from a project that we did last spring. We were working with a small 10-person company coffee roaster. We wanted to see where their social media stacked up against their rivals because it's a consumer-facing product. It was important. We wanted to see how the site was built. Ultimately, we learned pretty quickly that they were not positioned as an ideal consumer product good company. They needed to up their keyword research game because they needed to figure out how to get more online sales. We worked through, and any one of you can take advantage of the free tools that Google has. It takes a little bit of time to learn, but you can do your own keyword research to see specifically, what trends are evolving in your industry, what keywords are rising and which ones are falling. But keyword research, my friends, it's a free tool through Google that you can use to understand how your rivals are going to market, how you should be going to market, what kind of campaigns would bear fruit, and what ones might be a little barren. As you go through your web assessments, as you go through your Google AdWords research, one of the things that you could do, and again, I gave each and every one of you a tool that you can kind of work and make your own, but you can start really assessing and benchmarking, where you stand versus your rivals in areas like search engine optimization. Are you running AdWord campaigns? Do you have any kind of social media presence? For manufacturers, most of the time, LinkedIn and YouTube are going to be where you want to spend your time because that's where your market is. But if you're a consumer-facing product, you certainly need to know the ins and outs of Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. So, when you're doing your benchmarking and you're seeing these side-by-side comparisons, you also want to categorize, what kind of tools are our rivals coming up with. Maybe it's a ROI calculator or, pretty neat animations that show you how to maintain or service a particular widget. Customer reviews are also a good way of understanding, feedback. Even more and more so now, we're seeing customer reviews become par for the course in business-to-business scenarios. It wasn't like that 3-4 years ago, but now we're seeing more and more professional buyers leave reviews and provide feedback because there is really a delineation of how we buy as individual consumers and how we buy as professional consumers. The web has really equalized that. I think the powerhouse that is Amazon has us all conditioned to ordering and buying online in that Amazon factor. We even see professional services companies kind of selling their wares and their goods in very Amazon-esque ways. So this is another tool that I'll be happy to share with the group. Kind of take stock of what your competition is doing as part of your research to build out a more formidable marketing and sales plan. It won't take a lot of time and you can do it incrementally, but taking the time to do it will set you up in a very, very promising position, especially as we're sneaking up on the door to 2022. And I hope you're all looking at trying to do some new and exciting things in the world of growth planning. So this is a tool that I would encourage you to all work through and think about. And as you go through, try to set aside maybe some resource allocation, whether it's an individual in your company to do this kind of work or an annual budget. In other presentations that we have, we talk a lot about budget, not really for the reason that we're trying to sell you anything or anything like that, but over the 14 years that I've been working with clients, I can tell you this: manufacturers, especially the ones with under 100 employees, tend to spend less than 3% of their gross sales back in marketing, product development, or sales, new business development. And that is rarely enough to make any form of an impact. The manufacturing industry, when you look at the larger players, the 500 plus players, they're stuck at less than 9%. They're stuck normally right around 8% of a reinvestment. So, it shouldn't really come as a surprise that there's stagnation in many of the different industrials that we see and we try to do our best to support. Tools like this can take us and put us on a journey to understand what we'd like to use, what we're hoping to accomplish, what kind of budgets would be worthwhile, and then, how are we going to go about deploying these kinds of resources? So, when you think about the role of intelligence and you look at, okay, we can benchmark, we can understand the market conditions, we can see what else is out there and how other businesses are targeting other individuals that we're not. Hopefully that kind of intelligence can lead to some sparks to drive your own internal innovation, right? This model that I have on the screen in front of us is called the Dublin Model. It basically forces conversations around growth in areas of new configurations, right? Are we working on a new product model, a new distribution network, a new structured offering, a new process of selling? Are we looking at new offerings, whether it's, subscription offerings, new products that we're looking to launch, or then areas to improve our experience? I bring this up because if we were to look at something simple from a primary research perspective, like a voice of customer survey, if we were to go out and we were going to interview 15, 20, 35 of your current, former, and prospective customers, I 100% guarantee those current, former, and prospective customers are going to come back with incredible insights related to these three categories: configuration, offering, and experience, and give you these sparks of creativity saying, you know what, I wish my contract manufacturer would come back with a better offering for systemizing how we quote, how they quote, order, sell, maintain, manage inventory and delivery. There's so much raw data that we can take in and use to drive highly innovative responses that I just want to put this in there and lead the group to say there's an abundance of intelligence that can come from your market, people that love you, people that hate you, people that are in the middle of the road with you, around how you can improve your offerings, your goods, and your services. And as we improve our goods and services, we're really starting to reshape and rebuild the American manufacturing infrastructure. There's a lot that we covered here today, but I don't want it to feel ominous. I don't want it to seem ominous. My time is yours. If you have questions beyond this PowerPoint, this conversation that I've had, be it one-sided so far with you, I just want you thinking about, where taking some time to understand, read those tea leaves, understand the market conditions, understand your rivals, where can that lead you to positive change? That's the presentation that I had mapped out for us today. And I would love it if there's any questions. I do see one from Patrick in the chat box. I'm going to be sending out the PowerPoint. There's a link there to the exact web assessment tool that we use. We've been using it for 14 years. It's actually a Canadian economic development group that designed this tool and upgrades it every probably 2 years to stay current. But use it often, and enjoy it because it's a really great tool. So that was one question. Does the group have any other questions that's of interest to discuss?
are no questions currently in the chat box, so I'll invite anyone to go ahead and use the chat box, or if you'd like to come off of mute and ask a question, we will open that opportunity up as well. So we'll give that a minute to see if anyone has any questions.
All right. Well, if anything comes up when you take a look at the deck that we'll send out, just reach out to us and we'll be happy to address any questions, concerns. There's a lot of stuff you can do, and much of it is pretty easy to get started with. It might feel a little uncomfortable at first, but it's a lot less harder than learning to ride a bike. I can promise you that.
Not a question, but just a comment. Someone saying, great presentation, Chris, thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm going to take this opportunity to also thank you, Chris. This was a lot of great information, helpful tips that I think people can take back. Certainly appreciate your time, Chris, and appreciate everyone's time that joined us.